Okay, the end is here. Week 12 of Re 36. This is a week of synthesis. It's a week of generating new conclusions from all the work that we have done. It's been a great semester. I've enjoyed working with you, albeit remotely. I hope you enjoyed this as well and learned quite a bit in the process. So I want to end on that note, tying together all the pieces we've worked on and assignments, and talk about how we're going to wrap up. So three pieces. Let's talk a bit about the pop essay, uh, the course as a whole, as well as the final. So if you had a chance to look at the rubric, it's in the assignment guidelines as well as attached to the group task for week 12. You would have noticed that there's some descriptors, several for what counts as an A. I want to look at two of them pretty quickly here. Obviously, there's several things that go into earning an exemplary grade on this essay, including completeness, turning things in on time, etc. But I want to focus on, I think, the two difference makers for the assignment. The first one here is falls in the What the Research Says piece in both the journal article and the research review. I really want to emphasize the need for synthesis in this research section. And by that I mean an A paper is not going to go author by author in organization in that section. An A paper is going to synthesize around key ideas and directions. That is, you're going to integrate, you're going to connect, compare, contrast, what have you, multiple sources, multiple research articles you've looked at in a single paragraph, a single subsection, what have you. And you're going to do that comparison so you can build around some key ideas, some key findings that play into your conclusions on your pop. So if you're looking for guidance on what that looks like, I would look at literally almost any article we've read all semester will have done that. They won't go article by article. They'll pick an idea, focus an area, and they'll go from there. So an example might be if you're looking at ways of improving close reading instruction, and one of the things that you're interested in is facilitating high quality discussions with close reading. You don't want to go article by article and say, well, this piece says this piece says that. You're actually going to want to sort of cluster things and say these are the core pieces of guidance on facilitating discussion and close reading. And then you can then look at multiple pieces and say, I've looked at this conclusion and this is how I agree with it, this is how I disagree with it, this is how I'm adapting it, etc. So you're really looking for a way to present the research so it flows into your conclusions. So that brings me to the other part, the implication section. You can see here, I'm open to solutions, implications, further questioning. It would be great if you came up with a really targeted, specific solution for your pop at the end. I'm not expecting everyone to. I'm expecting you to go in the direction that best suits what you learned and where you're at. And so I think that those are the two key things here. I really want to see a thoughtful and thorough articulation of your thinking, right? And so the thinking that stems from reading several articles on your topic, on looking at the course readings and the thinking that you've done around the course, your own practice, your own teaching and reflection this fall as well. And I want you to sort of tell me what are you thinking? What ideas do you have? What are your directions or next steps? What questions do you have? What pushback do you have even? All of these things I think are relevant and viable depending on the way in which you present the paper, including the research, a thesis you might develop, etc. So it's really about developing your understanding. All right, I want to do a wrap up of the work we've done this semester to sort of lead you into the final. So let me pose the question, where have we been and where are we going? So you remember that we started with three models, the RAND RTAC model, the MOJI model, and Kuser. So let me run back here and let's start with RAND. You remember, these are the building blocks of the work that we've done, the conversations we had around literacy all semester. Text, activity, reader, and the context, right? And we know the reader refers to that individual reader. We're talking a bit about what they know and can do, individuals, cognition, their interaction. The text refers to obviously the content, right? And we're being open here about what content could be, but any sort of text, any stimulus that a student engages with in order to develop and demonstrate comprehension. Activity is the actual task of interacting with that text, right? It's what the reader is doing with the text, the purpose, the way in which they're reading, what they do with the reading. All of those things play into the activity piece. And then the context is the setting or environment in which it takes place. School, home, the particular beliefs and practices of that setting as well. So remember now that the emoji model expands on that definition and really sort of looks at what the intersection. So the RAND model you can see here kind of suggests that they're all intersected, but they seem like separate spheres here, whereas the emoji model really want to sort of illustrates that in the center, right there in the middle of this Venn diagram, is where comprehension takes place. It's the interaction between reader, text, and activity and context, as well as the broader context that takes place in, that affects the ways in which people comprehend. And thus we have different ways of comprehending. Kusser offers a little different perspective on that. All of those pieces are still in play here. You can see linguistic and other sign systems refers to the text, right? Sociocultural refers to the activity and the context. Developmental refers to the state or the continuum by which one engages in literacy events. But it's worth noting that at the center is the cognitive component, and that the literacy events stem from the cognitive piece in this model. So what Kusser is arguing, and we're going to look at another model, of course, by him, is that literacy events comprehension stems from, even starts with, what happens inside the mind of an individual reader. And you can see that in this model, which we looked at a number of times, and though context plays a role here and is one of the sort of the starting points, it's the situation in which literacy occurs in, right? You can see here schemata, the long-term and short-term memory, as well as the evolving text cognitive world, the interaction between the reader and the text really takes precedence, right? You can see the monitoring piece up there. You can see this whole idea about what's taking place in the brain. Everything to the right really is owning and leads to the evolving surface representation, the reading, the writing, etc. It all starts, or it doesn't necessarily start there, correction, but it all comes out of that. That's a little bit different than what Moji and Alverman suggest, and this is back from the reading you did in week 2. We haven't looked at this, but you did actually see this model in one of your first readings. And in this model, you can see here that literacy skills, same ones that Kusser would be talking about, are at the center, right? We're talking about knowledge, the ability to read texts, right? Fluency, things of that nature, right? And then there's also the ways of communicating in multiple ways. So you can see it discursive skills. But all those things are surrounded by the context in which those take place in, right? You can see here popular culture, school culture, peer culture, home culture, etc. And then you can also see that the funds of knowledge pieces in the corner here, that like those things, those funds of knowledge lead to the literacy skills. So it's those social activities that then play into what it is students know and can do. Finally, this takes us up to week 12, Stone and Learned, right? And this attempt to integrate the two models. So you can see here in the center that it says crystallization of social practices in new neural patterns. And one thing I think this is suggesting, and I think the article backs it up, is that there's this model is leaning towards the emoji models in the sense of literacy is a social practice that is internalized by individuals. So you can see here social practice, i.e. reading, writing, the things that we learn and do in the social world are crystallized in new neural patterns, i.e. short-term and long-term memory. So we start with social practice, and over time, as the factors outside of that particular gray box then inform that. So what they're saying here is that both the social and the cognitive play into that ability to retain and to develop knowledge, right? So biology plays a role, the cognitive processes, effortful and automatic. And one way you can think about those two is automatic processes are the ones we do tacitly without thinking about, and effortful are the ones we have to like actually be strategic about. So you're used to writing formal paragraph essays for courses like my own, you might have never been asked to write a formal essay from the lens of cognitive theory, and therefore you had to very effortfully think about what you were going to write about, how you were going to present it to me, etc. Right, and then you can see on the other side here all those things about sociocultural practice we're familiar with, right? Activity settings, context, culture, uh, social cultural values attached to specific practices, and this idea here about individuals appropriating cultural practices, right? Those practices exist, they're context-based, and we learn to use them depending on the context we're in. That all takes us to the final. Let me talk a bit about what you're going to be doing. The final is really what I would call a transfer assessment. I'm going to give you a task. You have not read this piece before. You're not required to do any prep work ahead of time. I'm looking to see how you transfer your understanding of the concepts of the course to a particular situation. So it's going to build on the course knowledge. I'm looking for you to connect to the course readings. You can, of course, read them. So it's really, in a way, it's not a question about like, what can you remember? I'm not going to ask you to define sociocultural theory. I'm asking you to apply it, most likely, to an understanding of a new piece of content as well. So I'm really looking for the concept knowledge piece here. And my priority here is understanding and evidence, right? You demonstrating what you understand, what you know and can do, and using evidence from the course readings from what I give you. This is going to be a take-home essay. I'm expecting it to be coherent, but it's not going to be the kind of highly refined piece I'm expecting from your pop essay. Finally, let me talk a bit about grades too, because this is all coming down in the next couple of weeks. The pop essay, as you know, is worth 30 points or 30% of your total grade. The final is worth 15% of your total grade. Participation, which is worth 30% as well, is going to be assessed once I have week 12 group reports. So I'll look at week 8, 9, 10, and 12 together, and I'll generate a grade for you. Don't forget to fill out the group evaluation form for week 12. I definitely need that. I need those things because it helps me understand your contributions to the group work. And then grades are due on December 16th. So by December 16th, you will have all your grades in on Blackboard. And don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any